Laura.
Very good.
I didn't bring the
Every time, damn.
When I thought I was
I know.
being good by taking it, I didn't know it was you. Hey, Barb, you should turn off.
And Ms. Mullenbeck, we're ready.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education of the Glenbrook High School District 225. Ms. Smith, could we have the roll, please?
Mr. Downing,
Here.
Mr. Glowacki,
Present.
Mrs. Hope,
Here.
Ms. Mullenbeck,
Here.
Mr. O'Hara, Mr. Shine, Dr. Steinberg,
Here.
5 members present.
The first item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Dr. Gravel, have there been any changes to the agenda since it was circulated?
There have been no changes.
In that case, can I have a motion?
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Before we begin with our regular agenda, this evening, we gather with heavy hearts to remember and honor the life of one of our Glenbrook North students who passed away last week. Our thoughts and deepest sympathies are with the student's family, friends, and all who have been impacted by this loss. In accordance with the family's wishes, we will not be sharing personal information about their child during this profoundly difficult time. We recognize that many students may experience feelings of sadness or grief. We encourage them to seek support from a member of their student support team, a trusted teacher, or another adult at school. Students may visit the Student Services Department at any time during the school day without an appointment, where staff are ready to provide care and connect them to additional resources. Students may also schedule an appointment with the social worker at the Glenbrook School Health Center. A list of additional community-based resources is available on the Glenbrook North website. At this time, I invite us all to join together in a moment of silence to honor and remember our student. Thank you. Dr. Gravel, could you please share with us your report?
Absolutely. I was going to say good morning. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for gathering today. As we get started, I want to take an opportunity to acknowledge that the month of September of each year is National Library Card Sign-Up Month. And if you're not familiar, each year during the student registration process, parents are presented with a question saying, do you have a library card? And if you do not, would you be interested in having the school district connect you with either the Glenview or the Northbrook Public Library? And what the libraries do through our partnership is they reach out to the families and they make sure that all students in the household have access to library resources, which is so much more than maybe what we've perceived as a traditional access to check out books and other periodicals, but really a whole library of things, flexible learning spaces, spaces for students to be able to check out and collaborate with each other, work on projects, and certainly during times of the year, have a nice, peaceful, and quiet place to study. And both of our libraries have really worked to create these very, in some ways, cafe-like experiences for our students, making sure that it's not only work that they're gathering and navigating, but they're also having some opportunity to socialize with one another and continue to build their relationships. One of the unique elements of some laws that have recently been passed in Illinois and that both of our public libraries have embraced is that even students that live in unincorporated areas of Glenview and Northbrook still have access to library resources. And this is made possible through some partnerships between this Board of Education and our library boards of trustees. And today I'm excited to show what those relationships have resulted in. Over in the village of Glenview, and again, this includes students most recently in what we often refer to as a triangle area of unincorporated Glenview. We've been able to get 199 new library cards for residents. But the bigger number here, in my opinion, is 109 non-residents. So these are individuals that might have Glenview as their mailing address, but don't actually live in incorporated Glenview. But through these agreements, 109 new residents or new non-residents now have access to those resources. And then each year, if you're not familiar, the libraries ask for cards to be renewed that might have otherwise expired. And so through this process, we took care of 42 of those students. Over in the village of Northbrook with the Northbrook Public Library, 87 new residents now have library cards through the partnership and 11 new non-residents, so those that live in unincorporated area. And then an additional 61 cards that otherwise would pay a non-resident fee, those fees were renewed and waived for those students. So that's just another illustration of how that partnership is not just getting the initial card, but continuing to maintain that access. All in all, 406 new library cards through this relationship. So just taking that opportunity, if you have not visited your public library recently, I encourage you to reach out, explore, visit the facilities, encourage your peers, encourage your neighbors to go and experience what both of these libraries have to offer. They are truly inspirational maker spaces, and they have those too. The second topic I want to talk about today is just formally announcing that the school district is beginning its new club proposal process. So what do we mean by that? We're very fortunate at Glenbrook North and Glenbrook South to have a wide range of special interest clubs that are focused on academics, activities, athletics, the arts, and so on and so forth. And each year, we provide an opportunity for students themselves to propose new clubs. On the front page of the Glenbrook North and South website, there's a news article that announces this process, and it gives a link to the packet that I've displayed here on the slide. We encourage students to take an early preview. Technically, it's not available until October 1st, but it's available now if you look. Take a look at what those requirements are, what the process is, and begin preparing those applications. Any students who have questions are encouraged to reach out to Dr. Maranto at Glenbrook South, Dr. Tarjan over at Glenbrook North regarding any of the questions that are presented, the process for what's expected of clubs, or so on and so forth. Really important deadline, though. Completed applications are due on Monday, November 3rd at 3:30 p.m. And this is one of those documents that you're going to need to actually print out and have some signatures on. So just make sure to have it all ready to go, submit it to the SAO. You certainly can submit it early, but we look forward to processing all those club applications and interest in the coming months here. The whole process is described, but again, if you have any questions, please most certainly reach out. One other topic that I don't have a slide for, but I just wanted to mention is this school year, we did not fill the assistant superintendent role that oversees our business and operational services. And on October 1st, we will be formally posting the position of assistant superintendent for operations and student experiences. That individual is going to fulfill responsibilities that I previously did in that role, which involves business services, operations, technology services, safety and security, and a lot of those operational areas. Applications will be accepted through the end of October with the goal of recommending a candidate to the Board of Education prior to the Thanksgiving holiday. So for any individuals on our staff, within our community and beyond that might be interested, be sure to check out the Human Resources website after October 1st for more information about that position. As we move on, I'm happy to transition over to Glenbrook North and South. We've had some homecoming experiences, and I believe Mrs. Hughes, you are up first.
Yes, so we had a fantastic homecoming week at GBN from September 8th to the 12th with our theme Surfin' with the Spartans. And I was especially thrilled to see the different spirit displayed throughout the school and within our community, whether that was in our hallway decorations, our paint the town window decorating, and during our dress up theme days that really emphasized some collective themes as well as individuality and different elements of resilience. Our week culminated in a festive pep assembly with highlights of our band director, Mr. Briggs, leading our school song, and great activities such as a school-wide heads or tails competition. And we were pleased to experience success on the football field for our game against Elk Grove, and we celebrated with fireworks. I thought that was fun. And also Saturday's homecoming dance. We had a great time.
And over at GBS, we are actually looking forward to homecoming next week. So today, banner painting kicked off with our student activity group starting to create their banners to represent themselves in the parade. We have a theme this year called Game On, from board games to video games, having a theme of all the different ways that games can bring fun and excitement to our lives. So we're hoping everyone's going to come out next Friday, October 10th, for both the Titan tailgate and our football game against Deerfield. We too will be having fireworks. Little competition. We could see yours at our home game. So can you see if you can see ours from your field? And then next Saturday, 2 Saturdays from today on October 11th, homecoming parade will be kicking off at 10 a.m. with our dance in the Dome Saturday night. So we're looking forward to a really fun week of activities at Glenbrook South.
And activities are exciting beyond homecoming. We also celebrated our fall plays, and I believe GBN is first up with Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, so under the direction of Mr. Tim Broker and Ms. Kelsey Nichols, and with our technical expertise of our technical theater manager, Mr. Stuart Wilson, GBN's fall play was Romeo and Juliet using the original Shakespearean language. We were able to showcase our new star drop, and a special thank you to the donations from our various parents organizations who contributed to that beautiful set piece. One really neat thing about this fall play was that it directly connected to our freshman English curriculum. They will eventually be reading Romeo and Juliet, and so we took advantage of this to host an in-school field trip for all of our freshman students to view the play during school. So they had this unique opportunity to see the play, and then they will read that and be able to draw those connections later on. And so we're curious to see how that helps to increase their understanding of the Shakespearean language. It was beautiful.
And over at South, we had a fantastic rendition of Pride and Prejudice, which I don't know about those of you who attended, but as an adult, I appreciate the mild humor in Pride. I think you, Dr. Johns and I were talking about this. The cast did an extraordinary job of displaying both the overt and covert humor involved in Pride and Prejudice. It was an outstanding play. They had over 1,000 people come through the evenings to watch the performance. So we're incredibly proud of our Titans and really enjoyed the performance.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Hughes and Dr. Georges. Before we transition to board reports, I just want to take an opportunity to acknowledge today was a new beginning, if you will, for our Board of Education, in that we had the first meeting of our brand new Communications Committee. The Communications Committee was identified as a need within our district last spring, and it will be meeting at least 4 times during this year to review topics related to internal and external communication. But without saying any more, I do believe that Mr. Downing has been appointed as the reporter
for this meeting. Yeah, it's a newer, as Dr. Gravel said, we had a meeting. It's a newer committee, but I think some of you experienced, or hopefully a lot of you experienced, our new way of communicating externally, and we've really been focused on that for quite some time. Hopefully you've signed up for Parent Square, but we've really been intentional about trying to make sure that we push as much information out as we can in the most efficient and easiest way that you want it consumed. and we'll continue to make that better. But I think the good news is we'll be able to get emergency info out as fast as we can, as well as all the other stuff too. But then we started looking at trying to be proactive and gather information from the community, from our parents. So we are now engaging into kind of a second part of that and trying to figure out ways that we can, and I think we'll talk about that at the next meeting, but ways we can get more engaged with the community and really understand your needs and wants. That's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Downing. Ms. Mullenbeck, that concludes our report.
Are there any other board reports? Okay, in that case, we will move on to item 4 on our agenda, which is recognition of community visitors. And today we do have a couple of people who have signed up to speak. Our public comment period is limited to 30 minutes. Individuals who would like to address the board can sign up and indicate their intention. They let us know their address. That way we're able to follow up with them about the topics that they raise if necessary. You will be called to the podium in the order in which you signed up, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. The first person who signed up to speak with the board today is Sarah Weil.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm a graduate of this district. I have 2 graduates also of this district and 1 student still in the district. I've never been to any of these meetings, which is a sign of my complacency, but also I think the good job that you all do. So thank you very much for everything that you do for our community. My comment had to do with a recent email that was sent out with security protocols that are in place for our schools. And I think they're very robust when it comes to an external threat. I may have missed it, but what I did not see is anything that deals with an internal origin of a threat, which concerned me as a parent. So I just wanted to voice, it may be there, it may be that it's not publicized for strategic reasons, but it seems like something that I'm hoping that you all are considering as well. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weil. The second person who has signed up to speak tonight is, I'm sorry, I'm going to get my glasses because I can't really read this. Pano Diamantopoulos. Sorry about that. I'm sure I
okay.
said it wrong. Could you say your name, please?
Yeah, good evening. My name is Pano Diamantopoulos. I'm a current senior at Glenbrook South High School, and I'm here coming in front of the board today to ask a question and a statement at the same time. So me and my colleagues over here, Jason Spiro, we're currently starting Turning Point USA at Glenbrook South, and we have a lot of student movement. We have a lot of help from other adults as well as parents. And I just want to ask you, the board, what can we do to make our process a little faster and speed up a little bit? And also, how can we ensure we get guaranteed to be accepted into the school as a club?
I'm just tonight, we talked about the packet that you'll have to fill out. I don't think that the board is in a position to guarantee that a club would be, proposal would be accepted, but if you fill out the packet and have all of the requirements, that I'm sure it'll be looked at carefully.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. What's the name? Yeah. Are there any other people who'd like to speak? Okay, in that case, we will move on to item 5 on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. Dr. Gravel, have there been any changes to the consent agenda since it was circulated?
There have been no changes.
In that case, could I have a motion, please?
I move.
approve? What time it is? Oh, there you go. Ms. Smith?
Mr. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Glowacki,
Yes.
Mrs. Hope,
Yes.
Dr. Steinberg,
Yes.
Ms. Mullenbeck,
Yes.
5 members voting yes.
Moving on then to our discussion action agenda. The first item on the agenda is the 26-27 school calendar.
This is our first item for discussion today. Just want to emphasize that we will not be asking the board to vote on the calendar. It's always our typical process where we present information and then bring it back to the board for consideration. And this one would be at the October 14th meeting. This evening, Mr. Breitag will walk the board through a bit of the process that the district goes through each year to establish a school calendar. I do want to emphasize that this school calendar is a bit unique from prior years, meaning the one we're in right now, in that it's the first year we've ever had final examinations prior to winter break. And as interesting as this might be, we're talking about next year's calendar, but we've only lived in this calendar for about a month and a half. So with that said, just kind of measuring expectations, Mr. Breitag has really developed this year's or next year's calendar recommendation based on the current calendar parameters that we have for this year. We really feel it's necessary for us to live through a year of a calendar as well as to gather additional feedback before any larger substantive changes would be considered. But with that said, I'll turn it over to Mr. Breitag.
Well, good evening. And yes, we are talking 26-27 tonight. So I have to constantly remind myself which calendar we're on. Just some key dates as we talk about this. First and foremost, in this proposed calendar, our first school date would be August 13th. So that would be the first day of school. It's a Thursday. What's really important, I'm going to anchor in some of our parameters here. One key parameter when we're developing the calendar is that we start on a Thursday. That allows our students to have a blue and green day and a gold day in the first week, and then actually have a weekend, a little stamina reset after a summer break. So that's one of our key parameters. The last day of the first semester would be Friday, December 18th. That's another parameter for us, that we want to ensure that the last day of the first semester ends on a Friday, leading into winter break. What's important about that is our second semester and our first semester, we want to get as balanced as possible for our semester-based courses. And it's really important with a number of breaks and different experiences during the first semester. That tends to be the shorter semester in a year. So by placing the end of the semester on a Friday, we've really elongated the semester as best as possible. And then obviously, last day of school, I'm going to skip the third one. That's the most exciting, is we would be out of school on May 25th. So if you didn't hear the news, this was a short summer for a lot of folks as we went to the first semester. So there's our to finals first semester before break. So in this case, that would be when we would be ending the school year on the 25th. What's important in some of these parameters is that when we construct the calendar, we first need to ensure that we're aligning with the state parameters. Clearly, the state lays out a few things, that we have to have 176 school days, and it has to be 5 hours a day. One of our other parameters that we have locally is we would like to exceed that number. So we have 177 days, and we have 6 hours and 3 minutes a day versus the 5. So we exceed those numbers throughout the year. The other two things that we do on top of these clear Glenbrook guidelines that help us build the calendar and the state guidelines, we also collaborate a lot with our elementary schools to understand what are their needs, where do they find it important for us to stay in alignment, and where is some flexibility. This year, Dr. Gravel had met a number of times with the superintendents. And then when we had this calendar, he was able to then also work with the libraries and the park districts to get their feedback. Again, this is a township-wide initiative. Our calendar impacts businesses, recreation, activities. So it's a lot of people that we want to ensure their feedback is sought and understood. Outside of that, we do have calendar adjustments. Dr. Gravel mentioned it. This is the first year. It's odd, it's not October 1st yet, and we're talking about next year. We haven't lived through this brand new calendar of 25, 26. We do feel the calendar that we're putting in front of you is thoughtful, is aligned with our beliefs, but we haven't lived through this calendar that we're experiencing right now. So there could be minor adjustments coming as we continue to collect feedback, but we do feel these key dates that you're seeing here would stay true, would be part of the process. There could be tweaks inside of our proposed calendar that, again, we would bring forward if said changes needed to be made. So with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions.
Mr. Glowacki?
I was just wondering, in light of some of the, I think there's a new bill that just signed off in August with recognizing new dates or working with the state board. Does this calendar take that into?
Yes, it does.
Because I don't think they posted the dates yet.
Yeah, we looked at all the calendar rules that they had published out and took those into account. Now, again, they could bring further changes and then we would make adjustments along the way, but we have adhered to everything they have put forward.
So I guess because my understanding is they haven't even posted the dates that we should be recognizing for that year yet.
Well,
The bill just passed in
Sorry.
August. Yeah. If I understood, the bill just passed in August, so now it turned over to the Illinois State Board of Education to come up with dates, and they haven't posted their dates yet
Yeah,
for the following year.
I'll take that question. So a bill that was actually championed by Representative Katz Mull of Northbrook put forth, if you will, a task for the Illinois State Board of Education on an annual basis to prepare a calendar for guidance purposes. And the calendar would include all of the different religious and other cultural holidays that schools should take into consideration when planning their calendars. Now, if we think of that specific bill, there were two topics that were brought up. One is the general structure of the school calendar, days students are in session, days that students are not in session. The other element actually had to do with planning large events such as homecoming, or if you have our Glenbrook musical, like large scale events, while also providing awareness for all of our teachers. And Mr. Brito, I'll have you talk about this in a moment, of what we call homework-free zones. ISB is still working to develop that. However, we use a few different services that give us a lot of that same information. The difference is the services that we use right now, you have to pay for, whereas in the future, ISB will just provide it to all school districts. There's also one bit of challenge that you run into depending on what holidays you're looking at. Sometimes there is variability in the dates. And so the approach that the state board would take is these are the dates that you should navigate through. We have implemented the same calendar structure we have for this year with respect to days that students are in attendance or not in attendance. But Mr. Britag, as well as the township, are starting to do a lot of work with respect to this homework-free zones. You want to just kind of explain how that works?
Yes, so on an annual basis, we send out a message to our staff as well as to students in support of what are known as homework-free zones. These are in adherence to holidays and the impact it could have on our students. So from our breaks as well as holidays, we send out to our students the ability to say, hey, I'm celebrating this, and they would be allowed to not have homework due on those days and the days preceding their holiday event. So they vary depending on the holiday and the extent, but these are ways we've been able to honor different beliefs and different structures that are in place while allowing students to have that time that is precious to their family and their belief structures.
No further questions.
Mr. Downing? Do you have any questions? Ms. Hope? Dr. Steinberg?
Just clarification, maybe in a couple of things. We worked last year with the group in terms of changing the final structure. Is this implemented this year, or is this going to kick into next year calendar?
No, it will be implemented this year.
Okay. So normally when we, in the olden days, for lack of a better way of saying it, we used to have parents coming when we were starting to talk about having finals before the end of the year and asking about some students that participate in holidays activities. But now I've noticed we finish, I won't say way before, but we finish before the holidays. So is this allowing for flexibility, or should we expect people that are finding out about this today, a year in advance, that may say, how is this, conflicting or not with, I'm thinking about choir singing at different places, or now, because I think we're finishing earlier than we used to finish, so.
We are finishing earlier, correct.
Okay,
But in terms of final exams, our students have 3 days of finals. That's what we went through as a process. As part of that, they have the ability, if they have 3 finals on one day, to move and go through that process of saying that's too many finals on one day, so I'm going to move a final. From there, the expectation is that our students are there for final exams and taking their final exams,
okay. And
which is part of the reason why we try to produce this calendar ahead of time, so there's an awareness.
okay. My last question, it's, again, I'm trying to go back to comments that we had years ago about parents, because these questions may come back. Sports, that we start on August 13. Do sports start week before? How this match with the calendar?
Yeah, from an athletic perspective, actually, this calendar is much more aligned with our conference
Okay.
and the structures of most schools, because we were the last remaining, I believe, or second to last remaining school that had finals after break. So this has put our sports more in alignment with other conferences in the area, as well as non-conference games.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
I had 2 questions. The first concerns the bill that Mr. Glowacki had brought up and that you'd elaborated on a little bit, Dr. Gravel. I just want to make sure I understand. So the calendar that ISB is working on currently is sort of a overview of, as many possible dates that should be taken into account when setting up a calendar. But it does not dictate any particular days that must be taken that are in addition to those that are currently like Pulaski Day, or the ones that have traditionally been taken as holidays.
Correct. The bill is a guidance document. It seeks to further help expand what's in Illinois School Code, which are those specific commemorative and legal holidays at the state level.
Okay. That kind of leads into my second question. And I know this is something that you've been working on and that others in the district and in other districts around us have been working on, but perhaps you could just share with the folks who are attending and are listening today, as we are getting information and requests from community members and families about making changes to the calendar, about adding certain holidays, or recognizing there are a lot of constraints, and we have legal requirements, and we have the balancing issue and other things. Where are we in that process, and when do we expect to be able to respond to some of the folks who've brought those concerns to us?
Certainly. So from a professional connection standpoint, I meet with the Northfield Township Superintendent. So those are our elementary feeder superintendents, as well as myself, typically once a week when all of us have that scheduled time and we're able to attend. When we go through a variety of topics about alignment between our districts, we have had now 3 conversations that have gone into a lot of detail. One of the things that Mr. Breitag mentioned, and it's on the slide right now, is the alignment that I didn't personally realize as much until it was brought up by our elementaries about alignment with the park districts. And so it's one thing to talk about just field availability and activities and things of that nature, but our calendar greatly impacts the availability of summer camps and availability of daycare. And so one of the things that we've talked about is if all the high school kids who might serve as camp counselors or things of that nature are already back in school, that means that many of our community members that rely on those services might have a period of time where they don't have that support that's built in. So trying to keep that gap between when the high school begins and when the elementary begins is really important. We've also talked about different requests we've received from members of the community about recognizing other holidays throughout the school year. At the high school level, our greatest area of challenge in looking at modifications specifically comes to the fall semester. The fall semester already is a shorter semester with less academic instruction days, just due to the nature of exams being before winter break. And that is the condition that exists at the overwhelming number of high school districts within our region. The difference being Glenbrook, as a way to offer more of our students flexibility and choice and opportunity, has a large number of one semester classes in both the first semester and the second semester. And so if you have a lot of one semester classes and you have, Mr. Breitag, I believe it's 7 academic days or 8 academic day difference, then that's kind of difficult to balance from an instructional quality standpoint between semesters, ensuring the same level of access. And so adding any more days in the fall semester would require the school year to start earlier or to transition exams, which we've just made the decision on. On the flip side, now, if we go to the spring, we have a little more flexibility. But again, every day that you look to add would result in the school year being longer. And so we're trying to balance all of those. The elementary schools have been working to gather feedback from their administrative teams. We've talked about this for about a year in much more detail than some of our elementaries have. And so we're trying to all navigate through that. I anticipate we'll have more information towards the spring of this year, but we are also waiting for ISB to officially release their guidance document as a helpful starting tool. One of the things I just want to emphasize, and I know it's not directly to your question, Ms. Mullenbeck, but we recognize that many of our students have different personal commitments throughout the school year. And a lot of those commitments are specific and personal to their own faith-based backgrounds or cultural backgrounds. And we work to support all of our students in ensuring that they have the flexibility to devote time to those obligations as well as fulfill their school responsibilities. And one of those ways is by informing our staff, keeping everyone in the loop and providing those homework-free zones. But there is an operational or a logistical challenge in modifying the calendar in many different ways.
Well, thank you for explaining where we are in the process and the complexities. Oh, Dr. Steinberg?
Thank you. So a short follow-up. I think we talk about this and maybe we are already doing this back to the holidays. It's even if we don't take the days, having some sort of recognition. So people in school know that somebody is celebrating or a group of people are celebrating things, even if we don't, up to when we get to a point that more holidays or some sort of things will happen, at least having some sort of recognition. So if whatever your fate is, if you're attending school because you feel you want to attend school and your parents may be like, well, we need to go to wherever we need to go, at least you feel that you're being acknowledged by your peers or there's something. It doesn't have to be a celebration or anything else, but we all have special days at a certain point, depending on whatever fate we follow. So at least that would be a small step, on the way through announcements or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we'll have to explore all avenues because this is definitely going to be, there's a lot to take into account, lots of different perspectives, and it'll be already a big task just with moving this to this new calendar, and now we will have this in the mix. But thank you for your efforts there, and we'll look forward to hearing in the spring where we are as a progress report. If we don't have anything else on the calendar, we will move to item 6.2 on the agenda, which is an update on the Glenbrook School Health Center and nursing services for students and staff.
So this evening, we are really excited to welcome some of our colleagues that I get to work with each and every day. Dr. Cummings, our Assistant Superintendent of Student Supports, Dr. Joanna Lewis with Advocate Lutheran General Children's Hospital, and our new Assistant Director of Nursing Services, Mrs. Julie Schullard. I think the board knows that I'm very excited about our creation of the Glenbrook School Health Center over at Glenbrook South and how that environment has served as really a platform to help keep our schools healthy. I am one of those staff members who have taken advantage and been very grateful to the flexibility of the staff that's right there. But especially as we're entering into this time of year when flu, colds, and everything is going around, I have recognized and we recognize on the educational side that it's really difficult for students to always get into their pediatricians or get into their primary care providers. And so having this service, I think you'll see from the numbers, has been a great asset. But the other thing I just wanted to mention before I turn it over is for the longest time, I had a perception of what happens in a nurse's office. And as the board is now learning through different alerts that they receive, the nurse's office can be a little busy from time to time, before school starts, during the school day, and after school, and on days off and on weekends. Our nurses' offices are amazing places, staffed with complete professionals that are dedicated to supporting students and staff and making sure they get the support that they need when they need it. We are so fortunate to have only registered nurses working within our nurses' offices, so highly skilled, highly credentialed. And then this unique thing of the health center allows that care to be elevated even to the next level. So if you've thought you knew what happened in a nurse's office before, I encourage you to sit back and listen to what Julie, Joanna, and Laura might have to share with you. Laura.
Why, thank you, Dr. Gravel. Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. So my job entails a lot of different responsibilities, but working with the health center and nursing happens to be one of my favorite. Just don't tell all the others. So we're going to share some real exciting news with you and really share kind of a typical day in the life of a nurse and the health center. So I'm going to get us started here with just talking a little bit about outreach from the health center, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lewis to talk about some of the statistics. So last year we added consent for the health center to the pre-registration process for our incoming students. So that happens in the month of September right now. And we are currently at 96% of our students have agreed to consent, which is amazing. The health center does help any student that comes in, whether or not they have consent, achieve consent, but the process goes so much quicker because we already have it for 96% of our student population. In the spring, we start to offer physicals for compliance for our 8th graders. And they certainly do take advantage of that in the spring. So it's really nice to be able to start that process a little earlier before the summer. A couple of events that our health center has been present at are the back to school nights at both South and North. And then they also do the activities and athletics night, really talking about those sports physicals and compliance and all that good stuff. So they are around and about and visible and constantly marketing the services that they provide. In addition, Kara Rao, one of our nurse practitioners, along with Julie this year, visited the health classes at South and North and shared about the services that the health center provides and also talks about students advocating for their own medical and healthcare needs. We do have a community advisory board. The Illinois Department of Public Health decides who we need to have on it. We kind of go above and beyond with that and have some community representatives there helping drive some of our decision making. And new this year, we have a student advisory board. They had their first meeting. Yay. They're great. So students from both South and North participate on that. A couple other things that the health center has taken on are the pre-employment physicals for any of our staff getting hired here. It is super easy for them to make that appointment, head over to the health center and get their physical and be ready for working. We hold meningitis clinics. I know, sounds like a real good time, right? Any seniors out there? So they'll be holding one at Glenbrook North next week. So any students who have that outstanding vaccination can come to that clinic at North or South for that. We had heard from our staff that there were concerns about sudden cardiac events. This was a result of several family members and staff struggling with some of these concerns. And so we worked and collaborated with Advocate to offer a healthy heart lunch and learn that was put on by Advocate for our staff, which was a great activity. And then two other quick things. We started a school-based health center consortium where the health centers from the Maine District 207, from Evanston, and from Wheeling come together to talk about ideas, share, collaborate on different struggles or things that have worked really well, or grant writing, any of those things that we're now able to collaborate together. So that's been a wonderful partnership. And starting next Monday, we are starting to offer in-person mental health services at Glenbrook North. So we are fully staffed in the health center. We had a short period of time that we were hiring a new therapist, and she is going to begin on Monday providing direct services to students and staff in person on Mondays at Glenbrook North, the other 4 days at South, and she can still do in-person and virtual visits for any students and staff. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lewis to talk through some of our stats.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. Before I move on to statistics, I wanted to make two comments. I would be remiss if I did not give a huge thank you to the staff that works in our health center. So just for you to know who the people are behind the scenes, Cynthia sits at the front desk and registers patients and welcomes everyone. The nurses are very familiar with Cynthia because, especially for the students at South, if they come and they maybe need more than what the nurses can get for them, they walk right over. And she helps them. We have a new medical assistant, Liz, who works there full time. We have Kara, as Dr. Cummings mentioned, along with Raquel, a second nurse practitioner, and then Shauna, and Laura Urasich is our manager of operations. She, fortunately for us, is also the operations manager from the Advocate side of school-based health centers at Maine and Wheeling, so brings a lot of knowledge. And also of our mobile health program, excuse me, that provides free physical exams and immunizations to kids all over the area, of which I also serve as the medical director. So a lot of ability for collaboration. The second thing I want to mention is just one other thing about the Student Advisory Board. They are phenomenal. They taught me so many things about Google Classroom in about 20 minutes, and they knew all about Parent Square. I mean, they just like knew everything and have so many ideas and really want to take ownership. We have sophomores, juniors, and seniors right now, and we will be adding freshmen to the group. So it's really a pleasure to work with them, and we're really excited to learn from them. But how about some numbers? So this is, I just wanted to give a caveat that these are not just-in-time numbers. So the September numbers were from September 8th. So this is actually only the first week of September. We enter numbers at the end of the month. But this is our well and acute visits. So what happens for peds, I tell people pediatrics is a winter sport. And so you see that we have a lot more acute visits in the winter. So we're coming up on that right now, but a nice balance in the summer. And we're doing a lot of well visits and then a lot more acute visits. We accommodate a lot of walk-ins as much as we want to empower adolescents to take charge of their health and make appointments. A lot of what we see is walk-ins. So we do our best to accommodate those. So this is our well and acute visits in calendar year 2025. This is how many of those are seen by students, and just to see how this has increased. So the blue was 2023, the purplish was 2024, and then 2025. So you can see a really sharp increase every single year. May and June were a little bit less. That's actually because we did such a good job, like in February and March, getting people in earlier. If you notice, there's these really nice peaks, like the week sports physicals are due for the next season. So we really help a lot of students be able to get to practice. This is our staff medical visits. So those have always continued to follow a similar trend. I want to point out, it wasn't that all of a sudden the staff were so sick in October and November. This previous year, we provided most of the flu vaccines for the staff. So that was that big peak in numbers that, that we saw last year. Excuse me, mental health visits, like Laura mentioned, we did have a change in our staffing. So our one therapist left at the end of April, and we had some help from outside people through Advocate in June and July until we could hire our new therapist in August. So I'm sure we will continue to see the numbers increase. Most of our mental health visits are 45-minute visits that happen, and we work very hard to schedule those either like during SRTs or lunch, early release. I just want you to be assured we're not pulling students from classes in order to do that. But we have a great person on board and really great teamwork. We pulled the top 10 diagnoses. We've been doing this every quarter since we began, and they really sort of fluctuate up and down from all of the same things. I would say the one thing, this was last quarter, usually in the top 5 is either anxiety or depression. We did not have a therapist during the last quarter, so that's why that was not documented as much. But I would expect if we pulled this for next quarter, which doesn't mean that things are going badly. It actually means things are going well because people that need help are coming to see us. So these are the top things we're seeing: sports physicals, immunizations, and school physicals. And then, which you can imagine, sore throats, upper respiratory infection is what a URI is, headaches, sinusitis, weird rashes, and then just general nausea. Yes. There was one other thing that I wanted to mention and I can't remember it, but no. And then I'm going to pass it over to Julie, and I'm happy to answer any questions after. Thanks.
All right, the nurse's office. What do we do there? I have to tell a little story. When I left the floor, I was on a telemetry unit, so a cardiac unit. My cardiologist looked at me and said, "You're going to work in a school? You're going to put Band-Aids on students all day." And as my former principal's laughing, that's probably the least of what we do for our students. So in general, and I kind of want to follow what Joanna said, you know, I'm very humbled by the teams that I have in our buildings. We're all registered nurses. As RJ said, we've all spent time in a hospital on a floor. We have a variety of backgrounds: labor, delivery, telemetry, ICU, emergency department. So a varied background of services. What do we do on a daily basis? We triage students: acute illness, injury. A healthy number, I would say, at least at Glenbrook South, is between 80 and 100 students within an 8-hour shift, plus or minus a little bit at North. During the height of flu season, COVID, and the fall, our record last year was 128 students we were seeing daily. So everything from, you know, gastroenteritis, ear pain, flu, we see PE injuries, asthma exacerbation. That fitness testing and PE is a tough week. IDPH compliance, we work to enforce, you know, requirements for school attendance. For our 9th graders, those are physical exams, immunization records. For 12th graders, those are their meningitis requirements. So that's a long, arduous process. It starts, I would say, late winter, early spring, and we are sending multiple communications to families, and that culminates on October 15th. Transfer student management, we work with transfer families that come in. We do have to collect their physicals and immunization records. We do have to screen those students for vision and hearing. So that is, you know, in itself is a good deal of work. We co-manage concussions with our athletic trainers in the building. In general, our athletes are managed through the athletic training office, and non-athletes are managed in the nurse's office. communicable disease monitoring and reporting. Again, we're partnering with our local health department, Cook County Department of Public Health. I got to know that epidemiologist very well in the last few years, as did Lara. So we're talking about pandemics, but hopefully never again. What we've seen in the news, in the past few years, measles outbreaks, but really pertussis is usually what afflicts our buildings, and we're calling the health department and we have to send out communications and notifications. Daily medication administration. Typically, we have about 20 to 25 students that come down to each respective office that need scheduled medications. We also have students that take PRN or as needed medications. And really, we're also working with those students on life skills because it is a life skill to be able to manage your medical conditions. Accident reports, we maintain those for the buildings. IEPs and 504s, our certified school nurses play a big role in this. They're working closely with our building 504 coordinators, our IEP teams, special education case managers to write in medical accommodations for students that need access to their education and need some medical support. Vision and hearing screening, we are actually required to screen vision and hearing for all of our transfer students, all students that have an IEP annually. So that's upwards of 250 to 300 students, and any teacher referrals. We work closely with the dean's office if there's suspected substance abuse perhaps or use. Students that are falling asleep in class, teachers call us to do an assessment. Behavioral health, something very important to note. I have seen this grow over my tenure in the Glenbrooks. It's year 11 for me, and I would say upwards of 50% of our office visits on any given day are related to behavioral health. It's stress, anxiety, panic. They need a break from class, etc. I feel they do come down to the nurse's office. We're the safe place in the building. They know there's a nurse always on site. We've all had a psychiatric nursing rotation. We do what we can to sort of do that initial triage, and then we connect them to the person they need to be with and their student support team. And then, of course, there's medical emergencies, staff and students in the building. I hear Barb laughing again. Anything from anaphylaxis, cardiac emergencies, seizures, asthma exacerbation, change in mental status. We've even unfortunately have had individuals had strokes at school. So it's a really, really busy office, and I'm very proud of our teams. So what have we added this school year since I have been in my new role? We have been able to create a nurse's office or a nursing suite at GBT and GBO. That is something that will continue to grow, but we kind of broke ground on that. So we're very excited for that. And part and parcel of that, we hired an additional nurse that will be, transitioning to GBT eventually, but she's sort of in a dual role right now and doing more working as a float nurse and district-wide subbing, which is a great asset for both buildings. We are utilizing PowerSchool for our documentation. We're using something new this year called Dashboard. It's really streamlined our documentation, which is fantastic. I've been working with the building administration on some district-wide staff training. Last week, we did CPR, AED, EpiPens at South, and I've been in touch with Mandy about when we're going to do that at North. And then I've had the opportunity to start to work on some professional development for the nurses in general. We have Epilepsy Foundation that always comes. We worked with the nursing program over at Oakton, our local EMS partners. I have been in communication with them just as we continually partner with them. And then, of course, Advocate is assisting and getting some other speakers on hot topics for the nurses. So I think Lara had put this together, just kind of a timeline to show, how our services complement each other. So back in 2022-23, we had pulled on October 15th, roughly about 120 students that after many months of communications and chances still didn't have their health requirements in. We didn't exclude all 120, but we added the health center and those numbers dropped significantly. So we're talking about pulling 2 students, then last year was 1, and hopefully maybe we'll ultimately get to the goal of none. So that's where we're at. Lara, I think you're next. Yeah.
one more slide. Yes, and then I remembered what I was going to say. Yes. 2 more slides, sorry.
That's fine.
So we got this Illinois school vaccination report card in our email this year, and it caused quite a ruckus because we were all like, wow, why did we get a report card? So I chose to put 2 clips of this because we're doing really well. We are well vaccinated. What is that word? Well protected. Well protected. And when you go to the site to look at all the other like local schools by us, not everyone's in the blue and well protected. So our nurses and our health center has worked incredibly hard to get us to that blue zone and to keep us in that blue zone. So thank you both for that. And last, just to kind of summarize up a couple things that we are looking to for the future. In terms of the health center, as we meet with our advisory, our community advisory and the student board advisory, we are constantly looking for new ways of marketing, social media, Google Classroom, whatever it might be, to help get the word out about the services. By no means are we nervous because our numbers aren't high. Our numbers are incredibly high in terms of our visits. We know that our students and staff are utilizing the services. But we are not seeing the increase in Glenbrook North students and staff as we would like to, right? It's definitely an opportunity for growth for us to look at putting a satellite health center, probably a much smaller center at Glenbrook North, to be able to offer some services, maybe not all full day, every day, but to be able to offer services to staff and students. As I mentioned earlier, we are piloting right now the mental health services at Glenbrook North for 1 day a week. And so I think we'll get some idea and some data in terms of how that's being utilized there. And then the second thing we are looking to do is we're currently evaluating where the location of where the nurse's office is at Glenbrook North. And what challenges it poses where it's located. One of the biggest challenges is when calling EMS and having them come to the nurse's office for a student. The nurse's office is located in probably the busiest hallway of the school in terms of where there's open seating and students. And it's really hard to be able to close that hallway down for privacy and confidentiality of a patient, trying to get them immediate medical care and to be able to get out of the building. With the location at Glenbrook South, it is much easier to close down and reroute the students. At North, as you may have heard, had to go into, a hold for the entire building because of the location of where the nurse's office is. So definitely something we're looking at evaluating. So be on the lookout for me to come back and probably talk about those 2 items. And then before you leave here tonight, board members, we are gonna give you one of our shirts. We're thanking our community advisory board for the 3 years that they have been on that board, helping us get things up and running. So we'd also like free marketing to give you one as well. So stop by me before you leave to be able to get that. And you had one quick thing to say before we open it up.
2 things I wanted to say. One is I wanted to comment that one of the goals that we have too is to be sure that we are serving patients in the primary language in which they speak. And so we have a really incredible video iPad interpreter that we use. It's mostly face-to-face interpretation. We can get almost every language. So I just want to be assured that parents, when they join the students or students, when English is not their first language, that we are providing excellent care in their primary language. And then the second thing I wanted to mention is partnership with physicians in the community. So I am a community pediatrician, so I understand how important continuity of care is with a primary provider. So because we are charting on Epic, that is what's used by most of the community providers. So they're able to see our notes and documentation, but also we communicate back with primary care physicians when we see their patients, so that it's really like this full loop to continue to provide care. So we are in no way wanting to be interrupters. We are wanting to be additive. And we know that in the winter, they certainly do not have room to see these students in their clinics. So I think they're very grateful for our presence. So I just wanted to add those 2 things.
Thank you so much. Start with Ms. Hope.
I'm going to ask about mental health, of course. The therapist that you have working for you, is she mostly seeing students as one-offs? Is she seeing them like continuously? At what point would she potentially engage either the school psychologist or connect them with outpatient services?
Either way. Okay, sure.
I'll start.
Yeah,
Um,
yes, and, yeah.
Great question. So everything that you just said, right? Definitely assessing students, determining their needs, and then setting a schedule based on that. We are very fortunate that the new social worker that we have hired had been a school social worker for many years. So really understands the role, understands the stress of being on a student support team and what that means. And so she is very motivated. She's already met with all the psychologists and social workers and counselors to get the consent so that they can speak about a continuity of care between what's happening in the health center and with the classroom.
And I'm just curious, like the frequency of utilization. I know she's only at North 1 day a week, but has she got a wait list? Are people utilizing the services?
Yes, people are utilizing the services within like 1 week of her being there and us letting us know she was open. She was filling up her schedule. Our goal is not to keep it full. We want to be able to have room. So there's some people that she's seeing for just occasional visits and some people she needs to see longer term. She's seeing about 75% students and 25% staff. Well, that's what I would expect. That's what we were seeing in the past. So really being able to serve both and referring out when needed and keeping in when the circumstances allow for that. Yeah.
And I can also add, just so you know, given the situation at North, she was able to reschedule her clients that she had for today so that she could spend time at North and have that flexibility. So very nice to be able to use her internally before kind of accessing resources in the community.
Is she a part of the team that also serves community members, non-students and faculty? No, okay.
No. Yep.
Dr. Steinberg?
Thank you. First of all, this is great, and I appreciate the numbers as well. So you mentioned this consent form, okay? So I wonder what's the priority line on all of this in terms of our population. We start with very young students, children, but we end up with young adults. And I'm assuming on the mental health side, but sometimes, I don't know, maybe some of the medical stuff. Student may be willing to go get help, but may not want to share. I'm sure that somebody who has a cold doesn't care if the parents get notified that they have a cold, but somebody who may have a mental health issue or a question or be stressed out, maybe like, I don't want my parents to know. And I don't know really if it's a right to support the privacy or if I obligation to communicate with the parents. So can shed some light on this?
Of course. So well, the good thing is most of our students, 96% of them have consent for us to see them. That consent is signed when they start, and it is the duration of their school year, but every year they have the option to opt back out. We haven't had anybody not want to do that so far, I don't believe. So that allows them to come and receive whatever services they want. Because of the laws in Illinois for medical record access, anyone between the age of 12 and 18 through advocate with their chart, the visits are not accessible by their parents unless they've signed a specific consent for them. But we're never like prescribing an antibiotic without speaking to a parent on the phone or vaccinating someone that their parent doesn't know. But it does allow, if a student has a concern that they want to come to and talk to us about it without their parents knowing, if we have consent from their parent to be treated at the health center, we're able to have that conversation. I would say this is what I spend my life and career and my nurse practitioners doing, as well as empowering students to take charge of their health and to think about how they communicate that with their parents or those that are, not everyone has a parent that's caring for them, but whoever is part of that caring circle for the children. So we have the ability for that.
Right. I'm assuming on the mental health side is something, the protocol is similar?
Correct.
Okay.
It's the same consent. Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Downing?
I said one comment and sorry. Maybe you need to come.
I know.
Can you help me, please?
Yeah. I'm a pediatrician.
Is there a nurse in the house? Is there a nurse in the house?
Yeah.
No message coming.
Yeah. One comment, one comment and two questions. So, first of all, the comment is it's great to have such a service. We have so many students and faculty and staff and so many people in that building. It's nice to have something right there. It's what a luxury. And it's run by such a great team and with so many great outcomes. So kudos to you guys. My one question is around the marketing and communication. The marketing advisory, the student advisory board and the community advisory board. Is that really just for marketing and kind of getting the word out, or what is it that they're utilized for?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sure.
Okay. So the community advisory board really is just that. They help advise the health center. So when we are making decisions about bringing eighth graders, or we have ideas, or we want feedback, or we want some insights, we have students that sit on the advisory board, as well as parents, as well as community members. And so we are sharing data with them and getting advisement based on the need that month. We meet 3 times a year. And the student one?
The student advisory board is multifaceted. For example, we talked about how we go to the health classes to let the, students know. And they said, well, that's great. Health happens in sophomore year. Like, what could we do in freshman year that could be maybe an education piece, and also letting people know that the health center is here? Or they will tell us, we think that people want to get their flu shots and they don't get their flu shots because they don't know that they can get it here. Can we talk to them about getting their flu vaccines? Or one thing is, we asked them, one idea that we had, for example, is to offer these 15-minute self-care check-ins that wasn't necessarily meeting with the therapist, but Kara, our nurse practitioner, is actually certified in aromatherapy. So we said, hey, would this be something that would be of use to the students, like leading up to finals or AP exams? Would this be a service? And they sort of like vet that and think about what that would look like. And it's really important that we have people from North and South, so they're letting us know. And I think as we think about, also when we thought about the mental health expansion to North, we asked a lot of their opinions, like, tell us how this would feel. Do you feel like it would be okay to go to the nurse's office to get this? Do you feel like it has to be separate? Does it feel better to go to student services? So really asking their opinion about how to access care. And how they understand what the difference is between what you go to the nurse's office for and what you come to the health center for. So figuring out maybe where some pain points might be.
Sure. And the other question I had was, we also have great athletic training staff. I mean, how much can you guys streamline services? Do you parlay off each other? I'm assuming you talk. I just was wondering.
One thing that's really been pretty incredible that I think is unique in terms of the student health center world when we connect with other people is how seamless our relationship has been with the nurses' offices at South and North, and with the athletic department. So for example, we refined how we even get the sports physicals to the athletic department when we did it. We initially were handing them to the kids, and somehow by the time they got to their sport, they would not always get there. So now we hand it to them and we fax it to them. The relationship of referring back to the trainers, and when trainers refer to us, has been very, very smooth.
So is there a way is there different ways you can enhance both besides just physicals, or is there different ways you can utilize each other's knowledge and skills?
Yes. We're thinking, one of the thoughts we had was adding a member of that team to our community advisory board.
There you go. Yep.
That was like a recent thing that just came up, maybe from the students or from, I don't remember, but yeah, that's like our next step.
I was gonna suggest that anyway. I'll wear my shirt proudly.
Yeah.
Mr. Glowacki?
Well, thank you for answering my colleague's question about the recurring visits for the mental health, because that's was a question I had as well. It sounds like most of them are reoccurring visits, so it's getting the word out. I feel like we're going to have signs up soon with get your flu, COVID, and mental health check, instead of just like at the grocery stores.
Yeah.
Switching over, I guess, to GBN, because we've been, and this may be a question for the administration, when the few years back when we discussed all this, we talked very closely and a lot about expanding services and a presence there at that point, but physical limitations and resource limitations at that space. But we did discuss a telemed approach. And I was wondering, I know it was a lot to ask at that point in time, but in light of now we're a couple of years in, where do we stand on having a much more, I guess, visible telemed station And is there anything in the advocate agreement that prevents us from doing that?
So let's take the advocate agreement initially. The agreement is very flexible and supports telemed services as well as in-person services. There are some restrictions that the Illinois Department of Public Health places upon us when we're providing on-site services. So those we're navigating. I'm going to go directly, though, to the student and staff feedback. We have been providing, if you're not aware, shuttle service to and from Glenbrook South for students, whether or not they have a car, but they don't want to lose their parking spot, which, as you know, is a big commodity. Or if they don't have their own transportation, allow them to get to and from the health center. All of those options, as well as providing telemed, while they have been used, the acquisition rate is down. The direct feedback, just to be very candid, is it's really great that Glenbrook South has this right in their facility. How can we offer that at Glenbrook North? The specific situation that Julie mentioned with respect to the nurse's office being in the most popular hallway in the entire building, literally, has already led us down the process of evaluating a location where there is available space in the front of the building. We'll make it general, but in the front of the building, that would allow us not only to relocate the nurse's office, but have a satellite health center. With the staff that we currently have available, we think that we would be able to provide services at that satellite health center. And if that happened, a more permanent telemed setup would be possible for those days when someone's not there, but we need that separate space that's not kind of borrowing from some people.
So the earliest we'd be looking at having more of a presence would be
next year.
26.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
This was great. I'm so glad that we had this presentation tonight. And I think this is between the nursing office and the health center, a really robust menu of services that we're providing students and staff and making it convenient. And, there's so many barriers for people to get their health care, and to remove those barriers is a tremendous service that we're providing. So I think that's fantastic. For the benefit of folks who are listening, just because we haven't really talked about finances at all, if you could address just two things. One is, I believe it is the case that when we have students and staff come in, that you're not submitting to their insurance or anything like that. They just come in and they get the services that they need.
Yep.
That's something that people, I think, need to hear, because a lot of times people think medicine and they think money. Right. So if, to the extent that this is something that's available and that's not going to be something that blocks them, that has to be part of the marketing, I think, a big part of it. And then secondarily, I know that we've gotten grants and other things that fund these processes. If we could just elaborate maybe a little bit, Laura, on, how this it sounds great. And, but are people concerned? Are we taking resources from other projects so that we can fund this? And I think the answer is not really. We have other sources that are specific to this effort. And if you could elaborate on that, and perhaps also like thinking about what might come down the road for GBN, how are we going to resource that?
Sure. So, for the last 2 years, we have received funding from the Illinois Department of Public Health, a grant for 2 years. This year, we submitted again for the grant, so you can do it every 2 years. We were very hopeful to get maybe triple of what we got this year, and we really thought we were going to get it. And then with some budgetary cuts in the government, they were very conservative in terms of the dollar amount that was awarded. But we still maintained $75,000 for the next 2 years through that grant. They do believe there will be some other funding opportunities and other grant opportunities that they will keep us updated on, with hopes that we can use that to help subsidize some of the costs.
And just to answer Ms. Mullenbeck's question, prioritization of resources. The health center budget has been built into our operating budget since 2022. Is 23 fiscal year budget. So it is an annual expense. We have not increased it beyond additional support from the revenue side. As the board has heard before, we do seek reimbursement for services provided to students with Medicaid. Those are services provided through our related services practitioners, social workers, psychologists, speech language pathologists, and nurses. Dr. Cummings' department oversees that, and he has more than tripled our revenue in recent years. And so that goes to supplement the school-based health center. But, and I won't go into it now, but in the memo that's provided to our community and the board, I can't understate that when you are a school district employing a large amount of employees that would otherwise go to doctor visits at an average cost of $135 cost to the plan per visit, and you're able to reduce that down to zero in addition to saving in excess of $65 to $90 per block of a teacher being out of the classroom just to commute back and forth to their doctor's appointments. Those are massive. We do have support here if anyone needs. Those are massive cost savings that also exist. So there's decreased expenses on the self-insurance side. There's revenue from Medicaid as well as IDPH grants, and then there's your overall amount of money in the budget.
Great.
Okay, quick follow-up, sorry. I think we talked about this 2 years ago, but so we're billing Medicaid, but what about people that have insurance? Can we?
Sure. So when we opened the health center, we worked with the board. The board established that the health center would cost $0 to anyone in order to promote the healthy schools. So we do not bill private insurance. We would only bill Medicaid, and that really comes down to some challenges when you start billing private insurance. For instance, within the state of Illinois, the overwhelming majority of plans, I say that in case there is an exception that I missed, is required to include a wellness visit, which is that first visit on cycle that's paid for by the plan. If you come to the health center and you happen to be on that cycle and you have not gotten your primary visit, but you're just in for an acute visit, you would lose access to that benefit. And so there's a lot of logistical challenges that we've learned about in the insurance market. I've learned about over the last few years. It's good times.
All right, thank you.
And then just because it popped into my head and you talked about at the transition facility, our new transition school, and then also off campus now having more resources. Could you just go into a little bit about how that's being staffed and like what resources are available for the students in those two school communities?
So we've set up physical spaces. So it involves, ordering supplies, getting it set up. At transition, it's myself and then the new nurse that we hired full-time. So we kind of collaborating in that regard, working on care plans, medication orders, et cetera. I have been meeting with each building administrator on a regular basis just to talk about, what services might look like, especially in our absence. And then, that's really.
And for off campus?
Oh, off campus, sorry. I knew it was something else. That's me. Yeah, just me.
Okay, great.
So I float over there as needed. And then I have regular meetings with Doug, who's the administrator over there. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Does anyone have anything else for our health providers?
Antibiotics.
Notice I'm the only one now.
I know, I'm
and
really nervous
Tomorrow you're
for
gonna see
you.
me
I would say
cough.
Yeah, you're
between these two.
I'm really nervous for you.
We do not take
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
lightly that things are free of charge for students and staff. So I would say that we always give people what they need, but we are judicious with our use of testing and all of those things, as anyone should be, whether they were insured or not. So I think we understand the financial commitment of the district and also are doing what it takes to keep children and staff healthy. So I think many people would not be accessing our services if they had to pay.
Right.
And before they step back, since we have some distinguished guests here, including Dr. Lewis and Mrs. Shellard, on behalf of all the work that you do and the work that your team do, thank you. And can we give them a round of applause? Thank you so much, all.
Excellent. That was a great presentation. And now we move on to our next topic, which is an update on the policy manual modernization project. And we have visual aid.
We do have visuals. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Johns, but I just want to point something out. And I want to make sure I don't injure the binders.
Yeah.
This right here, my friends,
Barely lifted.
this is the current policy manual. It's very pretty. And this is our first draft of the new policy manual. And I just want to point out that's, see, we're making progress.
Yes.
And with that, Dr. Johns.
Thank you. This topic won't be as much of a feel good as our last topic. Thank you. But I am very excited about it. We are making tremendous progress in our efforts to modernize our policy manual. So we now have the first draft of our policy manual. We received it today, and the draft incorporates the most recent pressed updates all the way up until June. We know, however, that one of the biggest updates ever will be coming in October. So we'll have to meld in those new updates. The size of the number of updates is due to the amount of legislation that was passed last year and all those new mandates that are hitting us, really many of them starting this year and on July 1. While we're not ready for adoption yet, this document provides us a very strong foundation for our review and editing process, which brings us to the next steps. We have, as you've seen, Dr. Gravel has passed out the hard copies to board members who are on the committee, and we'll share the 450-page PDF to the other members on the committee. We are going to put this on our website so others can see it as well, and we'll begin the process of reviewing both the content, but also the comparison to what we have old versus new. Participants will review the manual. They'll note potential edits or questions. And what we'll typically do, the process typically has members of the administration and the board review the whole thing, but then for certain sections, we'll ask administrator to cover it particularly closely. For example, there's pieces that are primarily about human resources. There's pieces that are about student behavior. There's pieces that are about curriculum and instruction. It will ask the targeted administrators to delve into those sections really closely. And then we'll begin the process of cross-checking our draft with the current manual in light of the individual and unique policies that we have. Part of the diet that you see is that we have over 40 policies of our own that are unique to District 225. In many cases, 4 or 5 of those are combined into one press policy. So we may be able to maintain that belt tightening that you mentioned. Along the way, we'll also back to healthcare. And then along the way, we'll have our attorney to review, particularly in Section 5 personnel, as a lot of the policies have collective bargaining implications, and that's particularly unique and poignant in our district, where a lot of collective bargaining pieces are actually built into our policy manual. So we'll want to use our law firm to go through those very carefully. I'll be scheduling a meeting, our first editing meeting in November. I'll reach out to the committee members to set that date up. You should see something yet this week from me. Just to give you an early heads up, if you're one of those who are designated to review, we have to start right away because 2 weeks before the meeting, I have to send all of our edit suggestions to the IASB so they can make the changes that they need to make. So if I set this on for November 20th or something, that doesn't give us, if I say November 29th, that doesn't give us a full month. So we have to get working on it. Other than that, we'll have a total of 3 meetings with the IASB. Once again, these meetings are all subject to the Open Meetings Act. They'll be 2 to 3 hours typically. Our last one we held next door in the professional development room, and we were able to beat that time because we are the Glenbrooks. Any edits and customizations will be reviewed with the IASB, and we'll go back and forth with the worksheets. Finally, like I said, we'll have some unique policies. And so while what we're hoping for in this process is to be able to incorporate through Press Plus, whenever there's an update, just as a reminder, anytime that we keep one of our own special unique policies, that isn't part of the update process. So there will be some work to do as we move in the future, reconciling our existing unique policies with that from the IASB. But we're making really good progress. It is really gratifying to see that the board passed this move to work with the IASB 1 month ago, and already we have our first hard copy draft in front of us. So we're making really good progress, really have a good relationship formed with the IASB, and I think we're making good progress. Any questions?
Mr. Glowacki?
Yes. First one, if you could refresh my memory on how does the Press Plus interact with our student handbook? And you mentioned already agreements that you've got to go out to outside counsel to have them manually, I imagine, review that.
Yeah.
But we've been migrating a lot of our policies and trying to get the procedures into the handbook. How does this all interact?
So the beautiful thing that's happening behind the scenes is that the IASB, which produces press for us, works very closely with the Illinois Principals Association, which does the model student handbook work. So they work behind the scenes. We'll probably end up more aligned than we were. But just like with our policy manual, there's going to be some customizations that the committee, which reviews the policy handbook, the procedure handbook, will have to review each time.
Is there a platform that we should be looking at then for the handbook to be supported? So these are kind of, I guess, thinking as there are changes being made, and it's for the folks on policy and the staff and administrators reviewing all this a little easier, because this is getting more complicated. You know, the
Certainly.
young man who brought up a question today about the board's responsibility, or which was partially incorrect, because the board does not have any policies about how these community activities get valid. There's a general policy, and then the rest of the
Correct.
details are in the handbook.
Correct. Frank, the quick answer is not that I know of, but I haven't been a member of the IPA for at least 15 years. So I'm not sure
Might be
if,
something on the horizon there.
if there's something on the horizon or not.
Not that I'm aware of, other
Okay.
than just the updates to the model handbook.
So I will say this, one thing that's really been a great development in this district is that our principals and deans and Dr. Gravel worked very closely together to bring kind of an antiquated student handbook up to speed. So minimally, we have a group of people on the team who are very well-versed in the manuals. So I think those kind of upgrades will go pretty quickly.
But we'll still have that manual
Just-
process. So we just, I guess in terms of timelines and everything, when questions arise about it, we need to recognize that there may be, some of these policies don't go into effect for a while to allow the other things to catch up.
Yeah, we will definitely have that situation, and that happens anyway because, for example, and I can't remember what the law is, but I noticed last week I was in a legal seminar where there's a new law that comes into effect for schools on July 1, 2026. Well, that doesn't fit with anybody's handbooks. You know, it's just something that someone didn't think through when they were putting together new pieces of legislation. So it's kind of normal that we'll have a little bit of variance. Typically, the wording between what the state law is and what the policy is not too far away from where we're at. Where our teams keep an eye on those things. So while something's going through the legislative process, we're all kind of keeping an eye on those, partly through our professional organizations keep us informed, but also our membership in EdRed keeps us informed of beware, this is going to impact your student handbook.
Thank you.
Mr. Downing?
More of a question. How much help do you need from the other people who aren't on the committee?
All the help.
No, I'm just saying is that's like, that's a huge, are we going to divide and conquer? Have we put a plan together for that?
We actually have not started a plan for that. We received this afternoon.
Oh,
So
okay, got
part of what we need to do is first designate the critical chapters to the right people. And then I think the rest of us will be more of utility players. We're going to break the policy manual into thirds. So I think we'll start off with chapters 1, 2, and 3, because 1 and 2 are really short, and do 1, 2, and 3 for their first bite. Yeah, 1 is like 4 policies and they're all short. So, okay. Yeah, you don't want chapter 6 and 7. So we might even try to do 4. 1, 2, 3.
But-
4 is great.
Just to put in a plug, Although Mr. O'Hare and I are the official board members on the policy committee, every one of these meetings is public. And of course, all board members are always welcome at all policy or any committee meeting. So.
That's a lot of work. You're gonna need help. So I mean, it should be all hands on deck.
Excellent. Mr. Steinberg, Dr. Steinberg, did you have anything?
No, yes and no, because we're gonna have to be reviewing this and back to, I think, Mr. Glowacki's point in terms of students' understanding of what, in some cases, what we can do or we can't do, or other areas of the school can or can do. Two comments. One is there has to be some sort of cliff notes of this, so people know, and I'm assuming with the new system, if I want to learn on how something works in a particular case, I don't have to go on a Google search chase where hey, if you're looking for these kind of policies, I think the numbering system helps with that. This should be here, this should be there. Make it simpler so everybody can have easy access to it. The second point is, and I think that's also part of there, but this is borrowing from my computer systems side, large books, it's always important. The first couple of pages, I said, this is version whatever, these are the changes from the previous version. I have a history of changes. So if you grab the book 2 years later or 3 years later, you're only going directly to things that change because everything else has been the same.
Yeah.
Again, I'm assuming this is part of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you think about what's really happening with these handbooks and the policy manual is that all of this is the work of a policy manual is originating with case law and school code changes. And so this is our interpretation of all that. And then the student handbooks is the interpretation of the policy as it applies to students and staff. So everything kind of cascades down. And I really appreciate your idea of saying, here are our updates, because it really does get overwhelming. And 10 years from now, Dr. Gravel will still be here, but it does require someone to be able to keep track of all this and for example, I remember being really adamant thinking a policy said X. It had been changed 5 years ago. And so it is important to be able to see that instead of counting on a wise person in the room with a good memory. I went to an interesting session at IASA's, the Superintendent's Association's conference last week, in which there is local work being done to incorporate policy manuals into Gen AI. And so that you can put your question in, it will generate an answer and footnote it. We all know there's some hiccups and the hallucinations are all interesting, but it would certainly save a tremendous amount of time to be able to have a layer of that on top. Not saying we're going to have that right away, but it's something to foresee in the future.
Thank you.
Ms. Hope? Just on Dr. Steinberg's point, one thing as far as, each year when we do the Glenbrook Days, I know that we do updates of policy. We inform the staff of major policy updates. So that seems to be like an opportunity, to piggyback off of that, to use that opportunity to put together something that may be more than just the highlights, but each year. I do think that once we've gone through this process, we'll be starting with a fresh slate in the sense, and we'll also have the support of press and their processes and procedures, and it'll just make it a lot simpler for us to go through that. But this is going to be a very heavy lift, yes, because there's a lot to do in the first instance, but will pay dividends once it's done, and each progressive update, will be quicker and faster and smoother, and we'll just have to get through this one. So
you're absolutely right. Think of the amount of time savings when we can go to a relatively, maybe within a quarter or a year update from press versus what we were doing when we had a 10-year-old policy we turned to, and then we'd have to find out, have there been any legal changes since that policy was made? So this will bring us up to, like you said, a clean slate. We'll have confidence in what we're working with. I think it will save everybody a lot of time.
Difference between proactive and reactive.
Yes.
Correct.
Be in a good spot. Okay, unless anyone has anything further on our policy manual modernization, we will move on to item 7, which are possible topics for future board meetings. And just as a little bit of a recap, Dr. Gravel and the administrative team had put together a calendar of when we could address certain items that various board members had brought up. And we have a couple of them on the agenda for tonight, but it is a always growing, changing list. So board members, please feel free to chime in with anything that you would like added to the list. If something occurs to you not at a board meeting, you're certainly welcome to, of course, send an email to me or to Dr. Gravel, and we'll make sure that we get it on the list.
We have two topics. We have two topics, so we'll focus on next week. One is continuing to be that expansion and kind of pulling back the curtain of student services and student supports in both of our schools. And that'll be looking at supporting students' mental health and well-being. We'll also take an opportunity at that time to explore an SEL screener that we offer to all of our students, giving a little understanding of data, as well as our constant seeking of feedback directly from our students. And then we'll also talk about a real important topic, which is identifying opportunities for members of our Board of Education to have some outreach efforts with our parents, our students, and community members. So those will be our two topics. The second one will be a little more of an open-ended discussion with some ideas to kind of frame. And this was also a topic at the Communications Committee. And then with respect to, forgive me, Ms. Mullenbeck.
Oh, that's right. We do have closed session this evening, and the topics that are appropriate for closed are collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, and student disciplinary cases. Those are sections 2C2 and 9 of the Open Meeting Act. So I think I need a motion to take us into closed.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
So we will take a break. 10 minutes enough, everyone?
I can do less, yeah.
5 minutes. 5-minute break, and we'll come back into closed. All right. I love that health center presentation. That was fantastic. That was great.
Oh, that's, no, that's, we're looking to. Graduate on.
Okay.
It needed you to give it a little love.
I don't know if you saw the notes about health infusion in a report card.
Yes.
School profile, I guess, but there is confusing with the report card to share with colleagues.
Yeah, to make sure. I think like he's confused about how they're clarifying it, because I understand why it's. But I also. I think he was confused.
Yeah, Boyle may just need to get out in front of the parents.
He will be, so he's the speaker at the association.
So he's gonna cover that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this.
Oh, it's been cold in here. It's been cold in here.
I heard about it. So random.
It's,
It started and so someone.
I was driving here today at 5:15 for the communications meeting, and my dashboard said it was 82 degrees out. 82 degrees? It's almost October. I mean, I'm not complaining. I kind of feel like the season has shifted, right?
Ryan.
Like now it's cold until the middle of June, and then all of a sudden it's hot.
So just in terms of, again,
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah.
And we are back at 9:47 PM.
Okay, we are back in open session and we do have an action coming out of closed. Dr. Steinberg, do you have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the administration's recommendation to expel the student identified as disciplinary case 2025-09-29-1.
Second.
I said, no.
Ms. Smith?
Mr. Glowacki,
Yes.
Mrs. Hope,
Yes.
Dr. Steinberg,
Yes.
Mr. Downing,
Yes.
and Ms. Mullenbeck.
Yes.
Motion carries.
In that case, we have a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
We are adjourned at 9:48 PM.
That is it.